Hi, Kate.
Good afternoon, Deb, on this rainy South Coast afternoon.
I know. We were having the rain. Droplets of joy is coming down on our plants and on our ground.
It's a cleansing. It's always a cleansing. The rain just washes everything clear. And, I guess that's kind of on theme, isn't it? Since we're talking about joy, it feels like it's such a gift to have that capacity, for the earth to have that capacity to renew itself, and like you and I both have, and anybody else who's watching.
Definitely. It's a time when, as you said, with rain, I suppose we've had a lot of rain. So I'm having a bit of a human moment with rain. Like there was like 2 or 3 years ago, I remember we were in drought and the whole country prayed for rain. And I remember when it actually finally came, how excited everyone was to see the rain fall. Do you mean? Yes. And that one weekend, over one weekend, our dams filled. But we had gone for months and months. We weren't able to water our garden. Everything was dying. So, it is a giver of life, isn't it? Water.
Of life and a giver of joy. And don't you remember that outbursting of happiness of everybody when it finally stopped being bushfire season, especially down here? The whole place was black. It was black underfoot, it was black when you looked up, it was black on the beach. There was just all these old burnt leaves washing, and it was black, and that wasn't good. And then suddenly the rains came, and there was all these little sprigs of hope and joy coming out of the sides, the little epiphytes from all the trees, and the ground started to go from black to a carpet of tiny green. And then the wattle trees all grew up, and everything was just like thronging with greenness. It was amazing.
But it's also a great indicator that joy is, as I said, is a state of being that we're not always in. And sometimes it's not to dismiss the fact that we don't want to be in a joyful state, but there is going to be times when, as our human life, there's going to be times of anger and frustration and disappointment and just feeling withdrawn, and how really in some respects it is a choice every moment of every day about what state we want to be. And joy is just one option, isn't it?
It's one option amongst many. And that kind of forced happiness that can often be a sign of having been through some pretty hectic trauma is also dangerous, isn't it? Like, you don't want to be joyful all the time. It's the same as the ocean. And I often go out there, and every day I go down the path and have a little look at the ocean, and one day it's flat and blue, the next day it's stormy and grey and green, and the day after that it's white froth and crazy. And it never stops, really. It just, our emotional body is like that. And the main thing, or I guess what I think is one of the biggest indicators of wellness, is that you can go swing out to being incredibly angry or incredibly sorrowful or whatever, and then you can come back. And it's that how long those cycles take. So it's good to feel everything, because everything's put in front of us to feel. And if we're shut off, or if we're permanently stuck on one mode, then that's a little crazy. And
I think that's the key, Kate, is that it's not about dismissing the array of emotions that we have, but it's how quick we can actually honor them and then let them flush through the system. Yes, I'm angry. Okay, what am I angry about? Often we're angered because either something hasn't happened that we wanted, or a boundary's been overstepped and whatever. But as quick as we are in that anger state, we can shift ourselves by moving into a different state, which could be joy, if we choose to do so, by looking at it in a different perspective or a different angle. Like, I've always, I'm a big lover of gratitude. Yes. And I've always found that that's been my anchor point, is that whenever I choose to change, and there's been times when I've wanted to stay in a mood for a while. I don't know why. It's thick. it's ugly, it's horrible, and yet I feel, you know, determined. I'm going to hang on to that because I'm in my right to feel anger, or I'm in my right to feel indignant. And so I'll sit in it for a while, and then after a while I'll get bored with it. Yeah. And then I'll say, you know what, I'm going to shift. And it's actually when I sit back and go, okay, well, that hasn't worked, but look what has worked, or look what is happening, or look what I can be joyful about. Through that sense of grateful eyes, my joyfulness will come back.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And, you know, just coming back to that whole analogy of the ocean, the surface is doing this, whatever it's doing, and underneath it's still, you know. And it's always, to me, about maybe not so much joy. I think joy is a very strong word, isn't it? But to come back to a sense of peace, you know, it's just about dropping down below the surface of all that exploration that we go through in our own emotional body in life, and dropping down to know that it's actually all fine. You know, when we get down there, there's a sense of peace, and we can actually become aware again. We stop doing this or that or whatever other posture we've adopted, and we can move back into a more receptive, beautiful way of being. And gratitude is just the best way to get that back into a state of reverence again, and respect and thankfulness, and all those things that are really signs of good health, you know.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Like we often bring back the word into how that impacts our well-being, how that impacts our wellness. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, there's been scientific experiments. I know that with Emoto's work with his water molecules that a lot of us refer to, that, you know, the vibration that we remain in does impact at a cellular level what our health will actually be.
It's, yeah, absolutely. Like the body, the mind, the spirit, and the earth are all in sync. So, you know, we talk all the time here, don't we, about the fact that it's very hard to be well and healthy and full of gratitude and joy if you're in a sick country. So if the waterways are suffering, if the trees are suffering, if your animals are suffering, it's how can you be joyful? You know, you can't be. So you've got to be in sync with earth. And then, of course, the body, when you're not in joy, then in Japanese culture, we say we sink in here. So we come into this position. So our heart meridian is just at a low ebb, I guess. You know, and that kind of physicality really has a big effect on every single cell in the body, because you stop breathing deeply. If you're doing this, you're just breathing in this top little bit, you know, and instead of getting the whole bellowy lung air coming through, moving into your belly, feeling like your heart's lifting to the sky, etc., all the things that we see as joy in a posture. If you're in a joyful posture, then your body is functioning well, and things are moving, and the fires are burning bright. And I remembered when you said that beautiful book, which I highly encourage anybody to have a little listen into. It's called The Heart's Code by Dr. Michael. The Heart's Code. I'll have to put it in the chat. Anyway, he was a cardiologist, and he was working in Hawaii, and the book is like one big questioning, but basically he comes up with some really interesting facts that I wasn't aware of before I read it, which talks about how the heart's functioning and what actually causes you to have a heart attack or have a heart problem, and what the heart is, and what kind of memory the heart holds, and what its physiological purpose is in the body. But the biggest one is joy, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, the heart is your center of joy, and very much he makes the case for the fact that the heart, because it's a huge electromagnetic field in the body. So the brain has a little electromagnetic pulse, but the heart has a much, much bigger one. So it creates an auric field around you that anybody can pick up on, or animals can pick up on. You know, when you go into a room and you feel uncomfortable, or you feel immediately at home, or you meet somebody and you feel, you know, that all has to do with the electromagnetic frequencies from the heart, is the way that he suggests. So, you know, looking after your joy factor in your heart, it's really, really important. Yeah.
It's interesting too you say that, because we've got our upcoming retreat, our last one for the year, which is just after this month, which is obviously focusing on joy, and it's heart-centered living.
Oh, great.
And until you just said that, I didn't see the connection there. Like, obviously we did that because of, or you've said that about living from the heart. It's, you know, that it isn't just a physical organ. It is, you know, on many levels, and coming from the heart is actually being in that space that you've just talked about. But until you just said that, I didn't see the connection of why that came about as to why we should be focusing on that next month.
There you go.
There you go. Intuition abound. Sometimes we never know what we're creating, do we, Kate? It just sort of all happens.
On that retreat, you very luckily have Lars Skolman, who's one of our practitioners on SoulAdvisor, coming along to do the cooking, which is like an incredible treat. But he's also going to be running yoga, and he will be running yoga for the heart and the small intestine. So that's all the fire element in the body and the joy. So he'll bring that about through the yoga as well, which is going to be great.
I'm very, very excited about it. I know that people that are listening here will check out the retreat, but the facilitators that are coming together, it's such a beautiful, like, we've got beautiful practitioners in our community, but just even the ones that are able to be part of this local event, you know, with the ecotherapy, Lars with Japanese yoga. We've got Justine, who's bringing in, you know, her blended the remedy with the qigong and the meditation and yoga. Mignon with, you know, her love of music and sound and cranial. Rebecca, who's the naturopath. And as I say, ecotherapy with Kieran. Like, there's and Tanya, who was part of our previous one, also is a part of our team, but also a practitioner in her own right. They're all going to do an amazing job there in Jamboree. So, but yeah, it's lovely to sort of see how this month is flowing into that, and it's all going to be about the heart.
It's going to be joyful.
It's going to be joyful. And I did promise the team that I would share that my middle name is Deborah Joy Shepherd. So there you go. There's my compass.
That's great.
Whenever in doubt, break the glass and see the middle name. It's all the way through joy.
And, you know, if you just can't feel joy, in Japanese yoga, we do this one. So we've got a little thymus gland, which is under the chest bone. And when you're a kid, it's about like a fistful, you know, it's as big in comparison to the rest of you. And we all know that kids, you know, they experience everything very quickly, but a lot of it's joy, you know, everything's funny, giggle, giggle, giggle. Wouldn't it be great to keep feeling like that? But as we get older, our thymus gets small and shriveled.
Oh.
Anyway, it's called the joy gland. So
really?
Keep it going, and we can keep doing this with our fingers really till it's almost painful, but it just stimulates that part of us coming good. Oh, you know, monkey sound. And just try and get that part to really, really activate. And always look at where's the angle. So where's this one facing? You know, if it's facing down, you know that you're probably not doing a very good job of staying joyful. But if you deliberately tilt your body, lift that to the sky above and the sun mostly, then you'll start to experience joy, because your mind and your body and your spirit and earth are all in sync. So you just have to keep swinging your legs like you do on a horse to convince the horse that you're comfortable with it. Some days you don't feel comfortable with what you're being thrown, but you have to go there, you know, just like, okay, I'm out, I'm here, and then how can I bring that joy about?
So, Kate, with you saying that about the gland, does it shrivel up like from a plum to a prune or something? Does it, like, and why is that? Is it as we get older we don't see the awe and the wonder that's around us, so we don't see as much joy, or what? Why is it that it shrinks?
It's interesting. You know, I've been a yoga teacher for coming up, God, goodness knows how long, 30 something years anyway, so a yoga teacher, and we always talk about approaching things with the mind of a child, you know, innocence. But then working a lot in Aboriginal community, again, it's about the spirit, the eyes of a child, the spirit of a child, etc. It's always mentioned that you have to come back to that perspective. So, you know, we get old and sour, so things happen, you know, our mum yells at us, or our best friend drops us, so we lose the exam, and we just start shrinking in on ourselves with the trauma of it all. And this doesn't get enough love here. You know,
so we do this.
Yeah, we do that, or we go visit Africa and watch how it's done.
So we can't afford to get to Africa, then we can always actually puncture our, is it the what was the gland?
Thymus.
The thymus.
Yeah, thymus gland.
Now, while we're talking, we decided we'd create a completely different reading today. And I've picked out a pack that I don't use a lot, but it's the Osho Zen Tarot. And I like it because it always has a message that is it gets you to think, and then it also has a reflective component of it. So you're going to have to excuse me, I'm not going to be able to draw on it as much as normal because I don't normally work with these cards.
Well, I'm glad you're drawn to do so.
So I thought something a little bit different for everybody. So I'm going to
I'll put another log on the fire.
Please do. So I'm going to give us a message. Oh, heaven forbid. Transformation. What is the message that we need to hear at the moment? Transformation. It says a master in Zen is not simply a teacher. In all the religions, there are only teachers. They teach you about the subjects which you do not know, and they ask you to believe because there is no way to bring those experiences into objective reality. Neither has the teacher known them. They have believed them. They transfer this belief into something else. Okay? So being at a tremendous transformation, hence they say that while we're involved, Zen is involved in the metamorphosis of the transformation, and it's an authentic alchemy. It changes you from base metal into gold. Oh my God, like again, we're talking about our retreats. It's actually about the alchemy component. So what it's actually saying here is in the commentary that we've actually got the ability to transform. And I suppose from our perspective, that's what we're talking about now, is that ability to alchemize from one to the other. It says the central figure of the card steps away from the vast world and holds the symbol of transformation of the sword that cuts through illusion, the snake that regenerates itself by shedding the skin, and they break the chain of limitations of the yin and yang symbol of transcending duality. It says, this is the time for you to do a deep let go. Allow any pain, sorrow, or difficulty, just allow them to be and accept them. It is very much like the experiment of Buddha after years of seeking. He finally gives up knowing that there was nothing more that he could do about what we see around him, that he may become enlightened. Transformation comes, like in death, in its own time. And like death, it will take you from this dimension into another.
Beautiful. Yeah. And this is a fireside chat. The heart and joy, the element is fire. And fire is about what's happening behind me here, which is you take a log and you put it in a fire and it moves from form to no form. So it's about that higher perspective. It's about that expansive understanding that you're not this small I sitting here in this body. You're much bigger. You're part of all of that no form out there. So knowing that, it's very hard not to be joyful. Yeah.
But also to me, when you read into that card, it's we were talking about joy being a state of being. And you said often it's because one is either stuck in the past or forecasting the future. They're not in the present.
Yes.
And I think that's the message I get from this card as well, is that in the transformation is the realization that there's nothing else you can do.
No, ever.
What is. It just is. You can't change the past. You can't change the future. Clearly, you can do things today that may influence what happens in the future, but it's not yet here yet. And so the only thing you can do is choose what you want to do for right now. And what we're saying here is that at any moment, there is a choice.
At every moment, there's a choice. And, you know, like, as I keep challenging people, what's so bad about right now? Like, just if all of us are here right now, I've got the amazing gums out on this big gum tree and everything's tossing around in the grey. I've got the heat at my back. I've just had a piece of chocolate. You know, I'm talking to you, engaged in great conversation, thinking into the bigger picture, and my feet are steady on the ground, and I'm sitting upright. And what's not to love about this moment? You know, this moment is absolutely divine, and every moment is absolutely divine. But it's when our brains get in the way of our hearts. It's when our knowing tries to take over as opposed to our being. That's when the trouble starts. So if we can come back into that sense of total presence, then transformation is just a normal part of every day, and it keeps happening, you know, and it will take us on a journey. So it's that trust and love and understanding that, you know, I don't have to resist this. Yes, I can work towards creating the vessel of my future. That's beautiful, and the future for everybody else. But, you know, right now, right here is the sum total of everything. Yeah.
And you're so right. We had a conversation before we came on here where I shared where I was emotionally, and it wasn't in a joyful state. And there was a hesitation of doing this because I always said, you know, I like to do things when I'm being authentic. And as I started to explain to you why I was feeling that way, it was very clear to me that I was projecting the future. I was focused on what I was losing rather than what I had. Yeah. And I was also focusing on something that I perceived that had occurred. All those were things that in that instant I could change. And as soon as I changed that, I was able to go back into that space. So I suppose what I want people that are listening, if they're listening and they've kept listening up to this point is that, you know, just like this card says, we're all teachers, we're all learning, we all have moments. And neither of you or I could say that we're always in a joyful state. There's times when we're just not in that space, but it's how quick we can turn ourselves back into understanding why we're where we are, because who wants to be in that space? And I says, I'm unusual. Sometimes I want to be in that anger and frustration. And just because I believe I deserve to have that indignity because it's just, I'm right. But who doesn't want to be in a joyful state? Who doesn't want to be in that curiosity? Who doesn't want to be in a great space? And so you can switch it, but it's actually understanding what you're telling yourself that's allowing you not to be there. And that to me is the transformation of this card.
Thank you for pulling that card.
Always. It was a little bit tricky because, as I said, when you don't work with a pack for a while, you're not quite sure. You've got to sort of reintroduce yourself to it. But it's a great little pack.
It is. And so I'd like to draw everyone's attention to a couple of things that are happening this month in our month of joy.
Yes.
Firstly, very happily, we're working alongside the IEHA.
The International Energetic Healing Association. Mm-hmm.
Correct. To explore what joy is all about. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's at 12:30 on the 12th.
Correct. 12:30 on the 12th of October.
Correct. Okay. And so that's going to be a Zoom event. And we invite, as always, people to come along and be part of it, be part of the discussion, be part of the fun that we'll have, the joy, that we'll have. Usually about an hour long, isn't it, Deb?
It is. And I think from what I understand, and each format's always different. I think from what we have been told, there'll be a short little video and then there'll be a panel of the members, some of the members of the association sharing their viewpoints around the vibration of joy. Mm-hmm.
Great, better to do so. And then we've also got another event on the 21st of the month, which is on a Friday, and it's in the evening. It's in the evening for a good reason, because we'll be stargazing, and that's UN astronomy. So it's an incredible privilege to have Dr. Robert Fuller, who's done his PhD on Indigenous astronomy, and Paul McLeod, Jarapanjimpa, who's one of our practitioners, who is deeply connected to country and is a very knowledgeable cultural man down here on UN country. So together they're going to be exploring, you know, the two-eyed seeing way of looking at this. So Western scientific thoughts around the stars, and also the cultural way, and how the stars have been so much part of story and cultural development and the progression of everybody on this land in Australia, and in particular in UN country. So we're not doing it by halves. We're going to have a 3-course dinner over at the base of Kulangati Mountain at Coolangatta Estate. It's a very significant place in this country's landscape. There's a lot to do with the death rituals that were practiced here.
It's going to be amazing, Kate. Like, I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I've even convinced my husband that he's coming to this one. So, you know, we're all out. We're staying overnight. So anyone that's listening that wants to come, it's on the South Coast. They do have packages there to stay overnight if you would like to do so. But I just think it's going to be amazing, like stargazing. But it's from the perspective, as you said, yes, from the Western perspective, and Dr. Fuller's got so much to share, but also it's the oldest living culture, and how they have not only forecasted, but lived based on what the skies were telling them. And so I just think that there's such a wealth of knowledge that's going to be shared that night. I really, really am looking forward to being there, and I hope a few more people that are listening here will get excited and find out about that as well. So that's on the 21st of October. And then what else we've got planned?
27th of October, which is 6 days after that, same venue over at Coolangatta Estate in Kulangati, which is where we hold our healing hubs. We'll be drawing together all the therapists and practitioners in this area, no matter what form of practice they're engaged in, to talk about healing, and healing on country and healing of country, and the principles that guide us as therapists and practitioners in the art of healing. We've had 2 amazing sessions so far. This last one, Deb, was really something, again, talking about the element of fire. We had 3 elders come along and talk to us and present a movie called Cultural Burning for Resilience, which is a movie that we as SoulAdvisor are going to be moving out across this Shoalhaven area, taking it all to all the small halls, and sharing just how fundamental cultural burning is for healing country, and how it's an act of love, basically, in terms of looking after country and caring for country, and to draw parallels between that particular practice and all the other things that we do in our healing modalities, and start that rich conversation.
And it'd be fair to say the invitation goes beyond practitioners as well. We had business owners there, we had associations there. There was people there at the last one that were not wellness practitioners, that had things to share and were part of the vision of what we're doing on UN country. And it was such a beautiful and beautifully held gathering, Kate. Like, we all, in both those times, they've had slightly different focuses, but both of them I've walked away feeling really charged about what we're doing, what we're building. And for anyone that wants to be part about how we're engaging the UN community and focus on country, with the view that we believe that you can't be well unless your country is well. So it's definitely still got that focus on wellness, but in our tagline, it's about nourishing yourself, heal our world. Is how do we do that? We do that by healing our country. So really encourage people to come and join us there as well for the conversation and the beautiful food. Like, Coolangatta has amazing brunches that we put on as well.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, it's not only the food, it's the nourishingness that comes from being in community. It's always joyful, even if the subject matter can get a little bit hectic at times, because this country's been through a lot of pain. Yeah, but it's always joyful to be together as a community, and really that's what we're doing at SoulAdvisor, which is drawing all of us together as a community to bring about a healed world. So and on we roll.
And I think it's because it's real. We have real conversations with real people, and everyone is able to share how they're feeling and get heard. So I think that's amazing. And then, as I said, we touched on it before, which isn't in October. It's actually creeping into November. Well, it actually is the first week of November, but flow on is our beautiful heart-centered living retreat, our last retreat for the year. That will be from the 4th to the 6th of November in Jamboree. So once again, fun pack month. Yes. We're really looking forward to Christmas, to take a breather.
Yes.
But, all is well, and all is joyful.
All is joyful.
Over here in Seoul. So I think that's it for us this month, Kate.
And look at this fire. Isn't it magnificent? I'm just going to sit by here and carry on.
Did you realize when we started this, we laughed about not using the fire, but seriously, our weather has really allowed us to put fire in it nearly every time we've caught up. So I'm so glad you've got a fireplace, because I can't use mine anymore because it's got gas.
Sorry.
Energy prices, I don't have any fire anymore. I have to just feel the warmth over here. So Kate, is there anything else that you wanted to say today to give us the wrap? Or
no, just I hope everybody feels a little more joyful having tuned in with us. It's always nice to think that people are here with us in conversation, and we'll be continuing to listen into what we've said. And as always, the invitation is there to reach out, have a chat, develop the conversation, give some feedback, be part of this community.
Beautifully said, Kate. Take care, everybody. We'll see you hopefully in the month of joy.